Hey everyone, welcome back to Health Huddle. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Samantha Kelley, a dedicated and compassionate professional committed to fostering mental well-being across the lifespan. She's a registered play therapist, a licensed counselor, and a licensed counselor supervisor, bringing a wealth of experience and expertise to our conversation. What's particularly impactful about her practice is a deeply ingrained trauma-informed approach, ensuring a safe and understanding space for individuals of all ages to heal and grow. We're eager to have you here today with us to learn more about your journey into this vital field and to share some insights as to what you've gained or learned along the way.
Hi.
Thank you. So, the first question that I have for you is about your journey and your experience. Could you share a bit more about what initially drew you to the field of mental health and the specific path that you took to become a registered play therapist, a licensed counselor, and a licensed counselor supervisor?
Well, I actually started out wanting to be a computer scientist and realized that that was not for me. But I've always been interested in how our minds work.
Mhm.
And I have a little bit of a traumatic history myself. So I was interested in psychology on how we are as adults. Um, that's what led me to continue my education. Um, through and then becoming a registered play therapist. I actually started working at Garrett Counseling in 2000. I think it was like 2016. And she would always tell us to do play therapy. And I love play therapy. I love how play therapy helps traumatize kids, but it also
Mhm.
helps traumatize adults. So that's what led me on the path of becoming a registered play therapist. Um, and of course, getting my licensure, I wanted to open up my own private practice. So you have to have a licensure to do that. And I've had my license in 2020. I had my license for 5 years and I decided to become a supervisor to help other therapists. But what I really, really love about it, about play therapy and about therapy and being a trauma informed practice is helping people release
Mhm.
what's weighing them down. You know, if you have some kind of block or something that stops you from reaching your goals, we process that, we discuss that. And a lot of times when we go back and we look at, different type of scenarios and different type things that happened in our past, we'll find where some of those things started and how it influences how we are today. So that's what drove me to become more trauma informed.
And for those that don't know what play therapy is, could you just break that down real quick?
It's actually a platform that helps anybody, but a lot of people say it's specifically tailored to kids, but it's not. It's tailored to everybody. What it does, it just gives you a platform to help you release and help you talk about those things that are difficult. Um, there are several theories out there, several play therapists, different types of play therapy, but when you get, especially a traumatized person or a traumatized child, and you start doing those play therapy techniques and the
Mhm.
therapeutic powers of play, it's amazing what comes out when a child is just simply playing. So there's been several kids that I've had in my office that have told me about their traumatic past without saying a word. They may put it in a sand tray, and then we start to ask questions.
So, working with all ages and employing a trauma-informed lens must require a very diverse skill set. Can you speak how these different aspects of your training and experience intersect into your work?
Yes, I have a vast history in working in different areas and different populations. I have worked in the prison system. I've worked in the juvenile delinquency system.
Mhm.
I have worked with at the mental health center. I've worked in a nursing home. So, and then I finally decided that, I wanted to go get my licensure. But what I have noticed in every aspect, every job that I have had in the field of counseling, trauma was the basis.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you bring all the experiences that you have from all your jobs and sometimes even your personal experience, and tie that in with, what you have learned in school, and tie that in with the continuing education units that we have to have. And, you know, it's about creating a space for that person to be able to process freely, without judgment. So you have to have first active listening, and active listening is you listening without the intent to respond. A lot of people listen just to respond and they miss everything. Like, you ask somebody, a question, and you listen to their answer because there's something inside that answer that leads you to another question. But if you're half listening and you're only going off of that one or two words or one or two sentences that they did in the beginning, you miss everything else. So active listening is huge. As counselors, we listen more than we talk.
Mhm. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and with this being the last week of Mental Health Awareness Month, from your perspective, what are some of the most significant shifts you've observed in the understanding and acceptance of mental health over the course of your career?
Well, I've been a counselor since the year 2000. So from 2000 to 2025, there has been a major, major shift in acceptance of people going to therapy, especially in the Black community.
Hmm.
There's so many more Black people that are seeking out therapy, different types of therapy, seeking out therapy, releasing some of those childhood traumas, and even changing, you know, changing the story. We all are influenced by how we were raised. And there's some aspect of our childhood that we do like to keep. There's some aspects that need to completely and totally change, especially when you're talking about mental health and physical health. I see a lot more in the African American community taking care of their bodies, their minds, taking care of themselves spiritually. It's different. We're on a different path than what, our ancestors were. So the shift that I have seen is more people of color, like I said, especially in the Black community, or more people of color seeking out mental health help where it was once taboo in those communities.
And I can just say, like, from my own experience, like, mental health is, I want to say it's like waves from someone who's not a professional, but like currently outside, it's May, but it's gloomy and gray. And I know what that does to my mood. I'm just so happy that for me personally, I went to the gym this morning and it has
Hmm.
uplifted my spirits all day. But it's just, you never know like what environmental factors or whatever comes into play could affect your mood. So like therapy
Exactly.
is one of those things that can help because it has helped me so much. Mhm.
Exactly. I agree. And I went to the gym today too before
Mhm.
we had our meeting because I'm on a physical health journey, as well. But yes, therapy just release. It's about releasing instead of holding on to those feelings or holding on to those thoughts or holding on to those traumas. We're at the time now. It's just time to release that and then take a different path. And I
It
love the fact
is.
that you said that, it's gloomy and stuff outside, but I went to the gym and I feel so much better. You know, Mental health and physical health and spiritual health intertwines. When one is off balance, everything is off balance. So that's what I love seeing, and especially in our community, people, taking a part of changing our eating habits. That's a huge one.
Hmm.
Changing our eating habits. And then you'd be surprised how many people come to my office that because of trauma has developed eating disorders because of trauma. The way they celebrate, we eat all the time and we do this all the time, and
Yes.
getting them to understand where that started. Going to the past, like where did you start celebrating with, especially in our community, we celebrate with food all the time. It does
All
not
the
matter.
time.
No matter what the occasion is, we're always celebrating with food. Which I'm not saying that that is a bad thing, but it's the type of food that we consume and
Yes.
how much we consume. You know, our ancestors, and when you go back and you look at the social aspect and everything, now we are in a different era to where we can take more control of our mental health and more control of our physical health and our spiritual health.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on like the eating food thing. It's like when someone passes away, like there's so much food, but then like someone as they develop, they'll start developing a eating disorder, more so like eating when you're sad, and then you feel that you have to have so much food, and it's not it's more of like learned behavior, but it's not learned like how many people think. It's just you are naturally taught that when someone passes away and then you have the repast, you eat all this heavy food, and that's how you grieve is through food. So it's that relationship. And then as they develop, it's like, okay, how do I break that habit? Because now you realize that, oh, I may have developed a unhealthy habit. And it's just it's to me, it's mind blowing how life happens and like your mind notices like, okay, this happened. Now I'm gonna fix it with the food. So again, therapy helps you break down those steps and how that connection ever even the connection even
Where it started,
formed.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. I am I- uh, I guess you could label it as a food addict back then. So just personally, from my history, we are a heavy set family. You know what we call it in our community, heavy set. I learned my eating habits from my mom. I learned my eating habits from my grandmother, and my family.
Hmm.
Um, and it just over a period of time it just never changed. So being on this physical health journey for me is releasing that trauma, and I had a trauma block. um, and I had to go to therapy, and when I went to therapy, that's when I decided to have weight loss surgery. And it took about, I think about 2 years for me to be able to make that journey, because there were so many traumas that I had to work through, so many habits that I had
Hmm.
to work through, so many things that I had to work through in order to make that decision for myself. And then working through what society may say about you and things like that. So many impactful things and so many habits and so many things that I've had to work through. And then when I did it, it just started me on this health journey, because it was like that was something I did for myself. That was something that was like a release, a trauma release, because my weight was related to a lot of trauma that I experienced when I was a child. So me releasing that, having that surgery, release that, and now me being in physical training is helping me release even more. So I'm starting to see the physical changes in me, which elevates my mood.
Hmm.
So, you know, going to the gym instead of, like today, instead of going to eat right after service, like we normally do,
Yeah.
me and my husband went to the gym. We went to the gym and then we went and ate. And it's like I released, all these pent up things from the week and everything. And, it just made me feel so good. And then I didn't eat as much when I went and sit down. So
Hmm.
it's such a difference in just myself. And then I like to give that to other people, especially people who are dealing with weight loss, who are dealing with, being overweight. So I really want to get into that as well. That's like one of my next things is, helping people um, with their weight loss goals.
And I know we're still talking about it, but
Okay.
we weren't taught how to eat healthy. I know, like for myself
Right.
growing up, it was you had like two starches, two
Mm-hmm.
veggies, two meats, but nothing was ever, and a lot of fried food. And it's like, as an adult, I'm learning how to unlearn how I was taught to eat. Like
Mm-hmm.
on Sunday dinners, I don't eat that much. Like when I go home now and I eat that much food, I go to sleep. But it's like now I can only eat that much food or that type of food so often. And
Right.
it's not like, oh, you changed that moved away. It's just that's a lot of food first and foremost. The way that it's prepared is not healthy, and we were never taught how to eat healthy. So, and then
Mm-hmm.
that's why, like, I get onto like how some people think, oh, just because I had greens that was the healthy part of my food. Just because it's a veggie doesn't like it's a veggie, yes, but how do you prepare that veggie? Once you
Right.
prepare it that way, it's no longer healthy. So
Mm-mm.
it's just trying to unlearn that and just teach the community in whole, like we were never taught how to eat healthy, but let's work towards that. But you can still enjoy the food that you like, but don't eat it
Right.
so much.
Right, right.
Hmm.
And that's the way I see it. It's like, to me, 90% of the time, we need to eat a healthier, have healthier options. Everybody's got those occasions like birthdays and you want to go out on the weekends, but there's always healthier alternatives if you look at the menu. So that's one of the things that my weight loss journey has taught me. And that's for me being part of Weight Watchers, and because I was trying to lose weight before I had my surgery. I was trying to lose weight. It was like, okay, Weight Watchers and doing this. So I know how to read labels. I know how to prepare food. I know how to do healthier alternatives. But it was that trauma block.
Hmm.
And like you said, growing up, we were not. I know when I was young, like, those 5-gallon buckets of Neapolitan ice cream.
Hmm.
I kid you not. I would eat a bucket of ice cream within 4 days. And that is
Oh
as
wow.
this is as a child, yes. And I still love cheese eggs, but I would cook. I know my grandmother and mother would, when I say, oh, I want cheese eggs, it'd be like 4 eggs with, 2 slices of cheese and white bread. So it was a lot of that. But also, I think it's also tied to our history. It's tied to the social aspect of um, Black Americans,
Hmm.
where our ancestors come from when we were only eating to survive. And sometimes I think that's what's passed down from generation to generation. So now we're trying to break those cycles, break those cycles of, okay, we're not eating to survive right now. We're eating because we have to eat to
Yes.
live. But what we eat and how we eat and how often we eat doesn't have to be that way anymore. And so when I started, going to therapy and started breaking down my trauma as to why I overeat, my mother was a food addict. And I did not realize that until I went to therapy. And I don't even think my mother ever realized that she was a food addict. It was just normal to her.
Hmm.
But everything, every emotion, every time, sad, mad, happy, it does not matter. How was I rewarded? Oh, I get to go to McDonald's if I do something. How are we rewarding our kids? Oh, well, we're going to give them, some ice cream. We're going to give them candy. You do well, in a sport. Oh, now we're fixing to go. It's constant, but that is the way we celebrate. So there's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with celebrating that way. It's just how you celebrate it. And so adding some greens in there without, the fat back, without the butter, without, you can
Yes.
still have your greens. So that's what I'm learning. And that is what I would like to help other people do as well. But going back to that trauma, going back to how we were taught, there's a lot of things. If everybody goes back into their histories with a therapist, they'll realize it's not just food, it is everything. It's how we are at jobs, not standing up for ourselves is a big thing. Knowing when you're being talked down to, and all these things that our ancestors had to endure, getting to that point now to where it's like, okay, well, I don't have to endure that. We can literally go out here and start our own our businesses and do these things. So it's a lot of traumas that was cycled to us. When we go to therapy, we're breaking that cycle. We're
That's true.
breaking that trauma. When we go and hire a physical trainer, we are breaking that trauma, because that there is a trauma attached to that. It's like, why you want to do that? Like, I don't sometimes, I tell people, hey, I hired a physical trainer, and the first thing people's like, well, you could have done that yourself. And I'm like, no, I couldn't. I could not do it by myself because that's the trauma. I couldn't do
Hmm.
it myself. One of the things that always is like, okay, not spending that type of money. But then I started looking at it. I'm like, well, we spend that type of money on clothes. We spend that type of money on shoes, electronic devices, cars. Why am I not spending that type of money on my health? And my health is going to keep me here. but that car and those shoes are not. So I had to literally change the way I seen that. And that's what you do in therapy too. It's like just kind of reframing the way you're thinking about things. So that's where I am with that. And I would love to help other people with that.
And I just want to touch on like when people are like, "Oh, you could have trained yourself." The thing is, I come across so many people where it's like, I just go in the gym and this is what I do. There's
Yep.
never any basis to it. You never know like what body part you're training, and you could have the wrong form. And also a
Right.
piece with that is that trainer is the person that you go to for the advice when, hey, I've been doing this, but this isn't working. Like there's so much more to it that you get, but it's also the stigma behind the gym, stigma behind exercise, and all of that is what strays people away. But
Yes.
there's also beauty into it as well. Cause like yesterday, for me, I started my own 75 medium journey and I went on a run. After the run, I was in a much better mood. After working out today, although I went to the gym when it was raining and it was gray outside, I'm in a good mood. There is so
Right.
much more to it that that's not educated about. So that's like one of the biggest things, but it's also when you're in the gym or you're at home working out, whatever the case may be, you zone in and it's a different type of focus that I even could imagine. Like you put on your favorite music or podcast or whatever the case may be. And it's just you in that moment working out. And it's like, oh, wow, time flies by so quick too.
Yes, it does. Like when me and my husband go to the gym, we don't work out together. We just go to the gym together.
Hmm.
He goes his way and I go mine. Like, in the past when I went to the gym, I always had to have somebody with me. And there was a trauma attached to that as well because it's like, okay, I don't want to go and be embarrassed. I don't want to go and do this and do that. But when I started working on my mental health, I started releasing those things. And the first time I went, since I hired my trainer, to the gym by myself, I put in my earbuds, I put on my music, and I just train. I just train. And well, like you said, you're in the zone, and before I know it, I'm done with my circuit. And I'm like, okay, it's been 45, 50 minutes, and it doesn't feel like 45 and 50 minutes, but it makes me feel good and it makes me feel accomplished because this
Hmm.
was this is something that a goal of mine that I've had for years and was never able to accomplish. And now I'm doing that. So that makes me feel good as well. But yes, it's different. It's a whole totally different thing. And then some people like my trainer is an online trainer and sends me exercises, but he's also a coach, also a nutritionist. That's what they don't understand. You are getting three in one
One, three
when
and one.
you
Yes.
three in one. And when I say, the trainer checks in with me, messages me, and then we do these like questionnaires about how our week went. Were you in the green? Were you in the yellow? Were you in the red? It's just like having that person that you can just go to, and ask questions about how we do this exercise. How can I modify this exercise? And just keeping up with me. And it's like I didn't hire him for long. Mine is a 6 month. But just being from February to now, I'm at a 25-pound weight loss. And
Oh,
I don't think I could have
congratulations.
done that. Thank you. I could not have done that. So the surgery, I lost 100 pounds. And now with the physical trainer, I've lost 25 pounds. And then a lot of people say as well, how could you go and have the surgery when you could have just went to the gym? People don't understand that either. It's a trauma attached to that. I would not be where I am today if I would not have had that surgery because I wasn't able to go to the gym because I was still traumatized. So it all works together with how we see things, and how we view things and what's attached to that little voice in your head that's telling you, no, you can do that yourself. But the thing is, if you're not a professional trainer and never have been a professional trainer, you can't go in and do it yourself. You have to have somebody that weighs you, and you have to have somebody that's like, okay, we're going to do these exercises for your body type, for your goals. And I did not realize how much went into it until I hired my own personal trainer. And
Hmm.
I feel great. And I could see my body changing. It's just such a good feeling for me. So I would hope other people, I would tell anybody, hire a personal trainer. Do it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing more about your journey and just how you came into like your own mental health journey as a therapist. Like, I don't think many people recognize that like you're human as well. Although you do this for a living,
Right.
you still have
Right.
stuff too. So like it's very beautiful to see your own, well, hear about your own journey.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I
So
love what you're doing here. I love it.
thank you. So what are some of the most pressing mental health concerns you're seeing in the community right now, particularly in the context of like within the past few years?
What I've seen, especially with teens, um, it's a lack of awareness. Suicidal thoughts and attempts have increased, even with adults as well. Like that's become a coping mechanism, and it's a dangerous coping mechanism because, like, once you're gone, you're gone. So I've seen that trend pick back up. I've seen like self-awareness, low self-esteem. And I call it a trauma trap, is like we're trapped into what was said to us when we were younger, how we were raised when we were younger, things like that. So I see a lot of people in this trauma trap, and it's like a cycle. We get better a little bit, but then we go back. We get better a
Hmm.
little bit, and then we go back. I'm also seeing, people not wanting to step outside their comfort level to get better. It's like, well, I want to get better, but I don't know how to get better. I want to get better, but if I get better and I don't feel this way anymore, then I'm afraid I'll go back. Like when I start feeling good, I'm afraid the other shoe is going to drop. So, what I have been doing in my sessions is bringing people's awareness level up that your days are not going to always be good. Your days are not going to always be bad, but there are some things that you can let go of that can make your life and improve your life. Like you don't have to feel that anymore. You don't have to deal with that anymore. You're going to deal, sometimes we're going to deal with financial struggles. We're going to deal with relationship struggles. We're going to deal with that because we're human. But
Hmm.
some of this stuff that we have been holding on to, that is cycling and these negative behaviors that's causing problems, those are the things that we have to work on and to leave behind. So that's what I'm seeing, coming into my office. And with the trauma aspect, up here on Sand Mountain, it's a big drug culture up here. So I'm having more kids come into my office that have these experiences with their parents, being on drugs. And then their parents get clean, and then the kids have been older. So have gotten older. So dealing with, the parent and the child communication relationship, that's been really big in my practice. Um, and then anxiety. Since COVID, I've had a lot of anxious people who've never dealt with anxiety before. I know I have never dealt with anxiety the way I've had to deal with it since COVID. I was in the hospital for 2 days with COVID, and I was one of the first people to get COVID. So I'm a long hauler. So I didn't know if I was coming out of the hospital or not. But I have noticed that, I deal with panic attacks. I deal with things of that nature, which sent me to therapy. It's like, okay, why am I having these things? I've never had a panic attack before. So just these new experiences with anxiety, a big explosion of autism where kids are concerned, ADHD, some adult ADHD, um, and a big number of relationship communication issues, things of that nature. That's been a huge, huge explosion over the last couple of years.
It's to me, it's just, I think after the pandemic, it opened up so many people to like the reality of life because
Yes.
we were, everybody was like in this go mode, but then when you couldn't go anywhere, like
Hmm.
everything hit like, and it hit like a truck, so to speak, how like
Yes.
after I've noticed like after the pandemic, there's so many more people that are focusing on their weight. There's active lifestyles like never before. Mental
Hmm.
health issues are being talked about a lot more. So like
Hmm.
I like to say there's beauty in the struggle, more so
Right.
talking about the pandemic, but like yes, it was a lot of lives lost and everything, but on when you look at it from a different point of view, it opened up the world to having these conversations.
That's right. That's right. And after every traumatic experience, whether it's on a grand scale like it was, or whether it's on a small scale, um, like you said, there's beauty through that struggle, coming out on the other side, realizing, okay, and that's actually when I realized that I need to open up my private practice is
Hmm.
when I was in the hospital. And I was like, you know, if I survive this, I got to do something different in my life, and spiritually, my higher power is God, but spiritually, that's what I felt like I was led to do because there's so much help out here that is needed. Um, but yes, it opened up a wave of, and because I think what the pandemic did is it's just you had to take a look at yourself. You really did had to take a look
You
at
did.
yourself, and because couldn't do anything, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't go to work, couldn't do anything. So all you had was time and in the house with your family, 24/7. That brought about, a lot of changes. So I think, like you said, with each struggle we have, there's beauty that comes out of that if you want it. And that is the
Hmm.
basis of everything, your physical, spiritual, and mental health. If you want to change it, you have a lot of people that go to therapy, a lot of people that go to the gym, a lot of people that that don't want to change and will get so far and then back off. I've had people that get so far and then never come back to therapy because they're scared of that change. And that's what we have to work through. We have to work through because everybody gets to that point where it's like, I'm tired. Like I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to work through this anymore. I don't want to do this. But if you stay on the course and you stay with the plan and you process, I promise you, you will get past it because it's just a stumbling block that you can't get over.
That's true. Like change shouldn't be seen as something that's taboo. It should be seen as something that's beautiful because the
Right.
journey itself, like when you look back, it's like, wow, like I know even for myself, like a year ago versus where I'm at today, I'm like, oh wow, like if I didn't take a big step away, if I didn't sit down and ask myself, Jamal, what's more important to you, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So it's
Right.
like,
That's right.
take the leap of faith, take the step because you never know how the end goal will be. And it's just a year isn't a long time and you never know like where you could be.
That's right. That's right. And a lot of people think when they come to therapy because they have so much trauma in their past, they're like, well, I'm gonna be in therapy for a long time. And you're not. Because
Hmm.
when you start releasing, all those traumas and your life starts to get better, it doesn't take that long. It really doesn't. Like there are people who had severe traumatic past that come into my office and within 6 sessions they're good.
Hmm.
And a lot of people are like, I don't know about that. But it's like you get to a point where these things are not bothering you anymore in your life and they're not stopping you from anything in your life. Yes, you continue to see your therapist, as needed or every once in a while, but the working part, you've done the work,
That's
and
true.
now you can move forward. You can move forward and be like, okay, now that I've let that go and now that I'm off that spinning wheel, I'm out of that cycle. Wow, I feel great. Now my brain can operate on a different level. It's like, okay, now, yeah, I want to go back to school. Now, yeah, I want to open up that business. And oh, yeah, now I want to go travel. Now I want to do these things. But until you get that block out of the way, until you get that cycle out of the way and get off that spinning wheel, you're just stuck.
That's true. So, how can families and communities better support the mental well-being of children and adolescents, especially in a world that presents unique challenges?
I think the biggest part is the communication part between parents and children. We've got to let go of how we were raised because we're not raising us. And I think most people don't realize that. It's like how we were raised probably does not work in today's generation. We have to figure out how we can have those old school values with new school techniques. You
Hmm.
know, um, listening to your children, listening to your teen, they just want to be heard. Actively listening, not listening to respond. Not
Yes.
always, okay, well, I mean, when your child is coming to you crying, instead of shushing them, you allow them to cry. And then once they calm down, it's like, okay, do you feel better? Okay, well, can you tell me, what was going on? And your teen, if your teen is acting out, differently, then there's something going on. That means there's a trauma trigger somewhere, but we have to be observant and we have to be self-aware. But we also can't be helicopter parents. We have a lot of parents that, well, I don't want them to go down the same path I went, so I'm gonna be extra hard on them. Okay, who's to say that they're going to go down that path because you've presented a different lifestyle than what you grew up with. So that's what I think I would love for parents to understand is that you've put your kids in a way different and a way better position than you were put in. So what you do with them and how you teach them and even the discipline is different
Hmm.
because they're not exposed to the things that you were exposed to. But I would say to parents, know what your kids are watching on TV, know what your kids are watching on, YouTube channels and things like that. You have a lot of people that give a lot of misinformation. So talk to your kids. Parents look at me when like I'm crazy when I say, well, I started talking about sex with my kids at like 6 and 7 years old because they were coming to me talking about it. When your kid comes to you and talk about it, that is when you need to talk about it and you need to give them the right information because there's so much misinformation out there on the internet. And we have to be aware that somebody's putting that information out. So it's the humans that are putting it out.
That's
So,
true.
you know, you gotta make sure that you're communicating really effectively with your children and allow your children a space. If they don't want to talk to you right now, they don't have to talk to you right now. Another thing, don't make kids hug and kiss people that don't want to hug and kiss. That's simple. That's a
Hmm.
big thing. In the South, go hug your auntie, go hug your uncle, go hug your cousin. And if that child says no, it's okay. I've had plenty of people that I've known in the community say, "Why don't you go give Miss Sam a hug?" And that child was like, "No." And I said, well, "Okay, Miss Sam respects your space. You do not have to come give Miss Sam a hug if you don't want to. You don't even have to speak to Miss Sam if you don't want to." That gives them personal space and it gives them control and it sets boundaries. We got to set boundaries. And that's one of the things that we have to teach our kids because sometimes kids don't have any boundaries. They do whatever, they say whatever. Okay, but there's a limit to what you have to do, and there's a boundary that we have to set. And sometimes parents have to work through their own stuff in order to be a better parent for their kids.
That's true. Like, I think it's seen as like children don't have what's the word? Like a say so, but it's like we should teach as much as we teach children, like if this person touches you inappropriately, this, that, and the third, teach them that they have their own personal boundaries, that if they say no or whatever the case may be, that that's not seen as something as a bad thing. It's this
Right.
child is letting you know that like, hey, one, I might be overstimulated. I don't want to go hug some stranger that I don't know. Because I know even for me, it's like when I'm first meeting someone, I'm like, what? I don't know you. Like, don't give me a hug. I'd much rather shake your hand. So it's like, why can't the same be for children?
Right. That's exactly right. And I love what you say about what you said about not having a say so. And I'm like, well, why do we do that to kids?
Hmm.
Why do we do that? Why do we say, you don't have a say so? And another thing that I don't like hearing parents say, and I'm guilty of it myself, it's like, well, what do you have to be concerned about? Why is your life so bad? I provided this for you. I provided that. You don't know what that teen or that little kid is going through. And that's us projecting our trauma onto our kids, because we're like, okay, well, we had it rough. We had it rough. We hear stories all the time. We had it rough. And well, our parents couldn't provide the lifestyle that we're providing for our kids. So yeah, things were a little bit tougher, but your kids don't know that struggle. And why should they? They're going to have their own struggles, but we have to realize, okay, that's our trauma coming out in our parental teeth. So when you say to your kid, well, you ain't got nothing to complain about. Actually, they do. It just not might not be what you used to complain about at 13 because it's different. So that's one of the things that I like that you said is that, kids do have a voice, using their voice.
That's like, I love how you even touched on like the different struggles, like what my parents may have went through. I might not go through, but I might go through
Mhm.
something completely different than they do. And it's just,
Exactly.
that's life. And I think we tend to forget that life is different for everybody.
Hmm.
So like that's one of my biggest things right now is like I don't understand why in this world today everybody cares what somebody else is doing when that's not affecting your life. I don't care what somebody's
Exactly.
doing. If doesn't have an impact on me, why should I care? Why should I stress out about
That's right. That's
it?
right. It's really it really behooves me. But I think that goes back to also not dealing with your own personal stuff
Hmm.
because somebody's lifestyle shouldn't affect you to the point to where that's all you're talking about. You're
Right.
consumed with it. There's something wrong there. You might not agree with this person's lifestyle, but why do you have to go tell them? Why? And you got to look inside yourself. Well, why do I disagree? Why does it matter? Why is that my business? So I love that you said that, and I love that you said that, my struggles are not my parents' struggles, and I might be going through something that they have never had to go through. And some parents come to me and be like, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know how to deal with this. I've never experienced this before. That's when you start to work. That's where the listening comes in. That's when you hear your child out or you hear your teen out and say, well, I've never experienced this before, but I want to help you in any way. So tell me what I could do. Sometimes teens just want you to be quiet and listen. They just want to vent.
Hmm.
That's it. They're not looking for a response. They just want to vent.
Yeah. So, for individuals who may be struggling but aren't sure where to start, what initial steps would you recommend they take to explore their mental health needs?
Finding a therapist. Some people like you're supposed to shop for therapists and doctors that you're going to feel comfortable with. You may go to a therapist and you don't feel comfortable with that therapist. It's okay to leave that therapist and go to another therapist. Physical trainer, if you're not feeling comfortable, you can go to another one. So I think people think that if I go to a therapist I have to stay with that therapist. You
Hmm.
really don't. If you don't feel like that therapist is helping you, you can go to another therapist, but don't stop seeking help. I've had some people come into my offices like, well, I've been to therapy before and it just never helped. Okay, well, let's process why. Let's start there. Let's start with what happened in your therapy sessions that you felt like, wasn't helping. And sometimes it's just they weren't ready, you know. But I say start there. And before you start any other journey, start with therapy because that's going to be the key to you to get to your other journeys because you can't get to these other journeys that you want to be on unless you process things that have happened to you, unless you process your trauma, unless you figure out what way to go. You may come to therapy and say, okay, well, I'm going to school to be a doctor, and once you start processing your trauma, you're like, no, what, I really don't want to be a doctor. I might want to be an engineer, but I'm being a doctor because that's what I was told I needed to be. And so I come from a family of doctors, so that's what I need to be. But that's not what I want to do, and therapy helps you come to that realization.
It's pick your life is your life.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So, how do you integrate the principles of self-compassion and understanding that you offer your clients into your own life when you're facing challenges?
Well, first I go and talk to my therapist, of course. I know I sound like a
Hmm.
broken record. But me being in therapy and processing my trauma and everything has helped my therapy with other people. And sometimes there are therapists that have untreated trauma. So when I was started working at Garrett Council, I would do all these. We did a brave play, is what she called it, a brave play CEU, and where we had to like live together for about a week and things like that. But that brought out so much stuff with me that I didn't realize I was holding on to. And I can't really help anybody unless I have gotten that help and continuously getting that help. So I try to do the same thing at home with my kids and my husband and in my community. I try to, instead of reacting first, is actively listening. When you see somebody that's upset, instead of running straight to discipline, it's like, okay, let's figure out why they're upset, because there's a reason, there's a trigger there. um, so just having that awareness and understanding and compassion, and realizing, okay, I was once there. Where that person coming into my office, I was once there. I was in a state of confusion. I was in a state of trauma. And so in order for them to get out of that, we have to go at their own pace.
Hmm. So, what is one key takeaway message you hope our listeners will remember in honor of May being Mental Health Awareness Month regarding their own mental health, mental well-being, and the importance of seeking support when needed?
You're worth it.
Mm, that's deep.
You're worth it. It is. You're worth it. It's worth it. That's it. That's my
Mhm.
takeaway. You are worth it. That's one of the things that I had to learn, that I was worth it. And coming from a place of trauma, you feel worthless, but realizing your life is worth it. You're worth it. You're worth, getting yourself together, however that looks. You're worth starting that business. You're worth losing that weight. Um, you're worth leaving that relationship that doesn't add nothing to you. And it's okay. It's okay. Failing is okay. You know,
Mhm.
Failing gets you to the point where you succeed. Even with my personal training, my physical training, I look at the scale and sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. I'll talk to my trainer and be like, why is my weight fluctuating like this? And they explain it to me, so you don't stop because you're worth it.
It's true. That's self-explanatory. Like everybody is worth it. Just
Hmm.
life gets hard. Like life wasn't easy for me. I had my own trials and obstacles, but I had to work hard. And I can
That's
look
right.
like if I close my eyes, I remember the person who I was 5 years ago. I'm like,
Yes.
that was me, but I see all the work that I put in, and this is where I'm at today. So it gets hard, but that's the thing with
Hmm.
life. We you go through different trials, and that builds you up. Like life isn't always easy. Like yes, life
That's
was
right.
easy for some people, but even those people were like from the outside looking in, it might have looked like it was easy for them. They also had their own struggles. So it's like
That's right.
people portray what they want everyone to see. So it's just don't forget that you are your own person and just
That's right.
focus on yourself. For me, I can say that when I moved away from my hometown, the place that I knew, moving to a place where I didn't know anyone, I didn't have a choice but to focus on myself. And it's a beautiful journey. And I think that's why me personally, like when I go back home, I tell everyone else, I'm like, if you haven't left, leave. Even if you come back in a year, but allow yourself that chance to just move away from your hometown, home state. I will always say home state, but even hometown, you grow so much more than you could have done in this place that everybody knows you. They
Right.
will always see like that small version of you, this or whatever the case may be. And it's just, I can say now when I go back, I like how I'm always asked like how I'm doing, but then I've noticed that now when I go back, I'm like pushing and motivating people to like do whatever it is that they want because they see my journey. They see how this is going on year 4 of me being away from home, and I'm it's like each year something new is happening, but now it's like week by week something amazing is happening. It's just I get asked all the time like why did I leave? It's to start my career, and my career has flourished ever since I left. I wouldn't be like, again, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't leave something that was very comfortable to me to get uncomfortable.
That's so true. That's so true. I went off to school and I was gone for like 5 years. And
Hmm.
then, of course, I came back because my mom got sick, but I realized that I needed to come back to inspire other people. And it's like I tell my kids, go, go. This just because this was my journey, don't mean it's your journey. But I had to
Yes.
leave in order to grow. Like you said, I had to leave in order to grow up. And people do see you as that same little kid if you never went anywhere. And like you said, I come back and people are like, they treat you differently once you've been gone a while and then you come back. But being that inspiration to other people, other young people, and being like, if I did it, you can do it too. So I
Hmm.
love the fact that you say leave, go, move to another state, become dependent on you, and you're going to grow. So, and because you're worth it, because you're worth it. You're worth to have a
Hmm.
better life than what you've had.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being the closer to Mental Health Awareness Month. This conversation that we had was absolutely amazing. We touched
Yes,
on your journey as a therapist, your own personal journey, and just breaking some stigma again and just sharing the importance of mental health. How, like, not only did you speak on some of your stuff, I spoke on some of my stuff, but I just
that's
hope you
right.
all understand that, again, we are all human. At the end of the day,
Hmm.
I love the saying that this is all of our first time living. This is your first time
Hmm.
living. So seek the help that you need to become that version of yourself that you want to be.
That's exactly right. And I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you so much.